सरकार की जय। मन्नाथ श्री जगन्नाथो मद्गुरु श्री जगद्गुरु मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा कृपालु गुरवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। I have been explaining one of Sri Maharajji's kirtans, which is Sadhana Karu, Sadhana Karu, Sadhana Karu Pyare. The Guru is lovingly imploring the disciple to practice devotion. Sri Maharajji has explained in this very lengthy kirtan the principles of practicing devotion, sadhana bhakti. We're on page 166. Second verse, Pratham Karu Hari Dhyan Manate. Pratham Karu Hari Dhyan Manate, Jaisi Ruchi Ho Pyare. Pratham Karu Hari Dhyan Manate, Jaisi Ruchi Ho Pyare. जैसी रुचि हो प्यारे. After telling the disciple, after emphasizing to the disciple the importance of involving the mind in the practice of devotion, and after explaining why that is so, now the Guru is saying, all right, now you're ready to do Rup Dhyan. So Pratham, the very first thing to do is Karu Hari Dhyan Manate. Engage your mind in doing Rup Dhyan. First, you must do Rup Dhyan according to your choice. There's a lot to say about this verse. First of all, the word Dhyan, meditation. Most people, when they hear the word meditation, they think about meditating on the breath going in, the breath going out, or on the third eye, or on the tip of a flame, just to concentrate the mind, to meditate. But Rup Dhyan is completely different. It is a very vibrant meditation. It's filled with love. Now, when you meditate on your breath, there's no love involved in there, is there? If you meditate on a candle flame, there's no love for the flame. That is supposed to be good for your focus, and it does help to focus. But when you do Rup Dhyan, you actually fall in love with Sri Krishna. You learn to focus, but you also are able to do something even much more important, and that is infinitely more important, I would say, and that is falling in love with Sri Krishna, the divine beloved. So there is a world of difference between Dhyan, which is dry meditation, and Rup Dhyan, which is so vibrant, which is so interesting, which is what will keep you in the temple or in the sadhana hall or in your personal puja room in your house for hours and hours, and it will make you feel as if only a few minutes have passed. Rup Dhyan makes all the difference in the world. Rup Dhyan is very vibrant, it's very interesting, it's very dynamic. So Rup Dhyan, Manera Smarana Pran, These are words by Gauranga Mahaprabhu, who says Rup Dhyan is the very life of devotional practice. Jagadguru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj, our Gurudev, says in Bhakti Shatak, Sab sadhan hai deh sam, Rup Dhyan janu pran, Khat gidh aruswan janu, Kamadik shavman. All the various practices in the path of devotion or in the path of spirituality, they are like the body, the physical body. Practices such as fasting, such as doing kirtan and bhajan, chanting the names of God, singing the songs of His glory, visiting holy places, taking a dip in the holy Ganga Ji or Yamuna, bathing in the holy rivers. These are some of the practices, devotional practices. They're like the body. Sri Maharaj says they are like the body. But Rup Dhyan is the soul. If the soul is missing, then the body is a dead body. What happens to the dead body? A carcass, let's say, a carcass of an animal laying in an open field. There are creatures, animals that will come and they will feast on that dead body, on that carcass. Khat, geedh, vultures. The vulture may be flying very high in the sky, but the vulture has such a great eyesight that it can spot a carcass on the ground, which is very far down. And the vultures descend on that carcass, on that dead body. And dogs, etc., they come and they feast on that body. Likewise, the one who does not do Rup Dhyan, but just does kirtan and engages in other practices of devotion, without engaging his mind is feasted upon by vices of Maya such as kamadik, lust, anger, pride, greed, hypocrisy, desires, attachments. So his mind is feasted upon by these vices of Maya. Rup Dhyan is the first thing, pratham meaning first. First thing you need to do is Rup Dhyan. Some people say, and I've heard lots of people say, well, I do meditation first, then I do kirtan. Or some people say, I do some kirtan, then I do some meditation. However, we have to do both of them together. And they ask, what should I do first? Do them all together. Do them both together, simultaneously. Kirtan and bhajan. Now, you've heard this many, many times. I'll repeat. Kirtan and bhajan, singing the songs of God, the practice of singing, that is a helpful tool in meditation. Remember, Prahlad said to his father when the father asked, Hiranyakashipu asked, what is it that you like to do? And Prahlad said, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnoh Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam, Bhagavad. He told his father about 9 types of devotional practices he likes to engage in. He didn't say, oh, Dad, I like to go fishing. Dad, I like to watch video games. Dad, I like to watch my favorite TV shows. Dad, I like to go to the mall with my friends. He said, I like to do devotion in these 9 ways. Little boy, 5 years old, said this. So no child over here should think, I'm too small. Why are you dragging me to satsang, Mom, Dad, Mommy, Daddy? I'm so small. I'm just a little kid. Give me a break. Prahlad was 5 years old when he said, this is what I like to do, Dad. So out of those 9 practices, Navadha Bhakti, they're called, 3 are main ones. They are Shravanam, Kirtanam, and Smaranam. And out of these 3, 1 is the main one. Out of listening to the glory of God and listening to knowledge pertaining to God and chanting the names of God and glory of God and meditation on God, meaning Rup Dhyan, the main one, the only one that's necessary, the only one we cannot do without is Rup Dhyan. Everything else is a helpful tool. This helps us to do Rup Dhyan, so let's do that. Clapping while I do kirtan, it helps me to think of God. Clap. Chanting the names of God helps me to think of God. That's why I should chant. Going to holy places makes me think about God, so that's why I should go there. So Roop Dhyan is the first thing to do. Even before we sit down to do Kirtan Bhajan, we have to start with Roop Dhyan. Why? Because I'm sure you have noticed, it's your experience, I'm sure of it, it's everyone's experience, that there are times when you find yourself thinking of someone or something worldly, and you think to yourself, you're so dismayed to realize that you've been chanting for the last half hour, but you have not been thinking about Shri Krishna. The mind is just roaming around in the world, strolling here and there, and we've just been chanting the name. So right away, if we start with Roop Dhyan, how wonderful would that be? How wonderful that would be. We start off with Roop Dhyan because the mind is alerted right in the beginning. Before I've even said, Gopal Radhe Krishna, Govind Govind, I will start thinking about who Gopal is, who Radha is, who Krishna is. I will start thinking about Ladali Lal. I will start thinking about Radha and Krishna. So pratham karu hari dhyan manate. Then jaisi ruchi ho pyare. This is a wonderful, very beautiful grace from God, that God says, I have not just specified one way in which I look. So you, when you do Roop Dhyan, you must think of me in that way. No. Tasmat kenapyupayena manah krishne niveshayet. Bhagavad Puran. Canto 7, chapter 1, verse 31. Here, it is being said, Shri Krishna says, you can think of me any which way. Yena kena prakarena manah krishne niveshayet. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu says the same. Jaise bhi karo, jaise taise karo. Chalega. Think of me any which way. Jaisi ruchi ho pyare. How wonderful that is. According to your choice. Think of me as you want me to be. So everyone is an individual. Everyone has different likes and preferences. So Bhagwan has said, I have not determined one way. I'm not telling you that you must think of me in this way. This is the way I look, and don't you dare deviate from that. Shri Krishna says, I know that you have a material mind, and I am divine, so you cannot think of me. You cannot have a divine Roop Dhyan. So I will give you a concession, and that is think of me any which way. We all have our preferences. Other people are surprised when they look at us. We are surprised when we look at their choices and preferences, but we shouldn't be. We are individuals after all. There's a story I heard in my childhood, and I'd like to share it with you. Perhaps you've heard it too. There were two friends, two ladies. One was a fish seller, and one was a flower seller. They were good friends. So one day, the fisherwoman, she caught a lot of fish. She went to the market, and she sold all her fish. She was about to go home, and it started to rain very hard. So she knew she couldn't make her way home. It would be dangerous for her to go home in that torrential rainfall. So her friend, the flower seller, said, Behna, why don't you come with me? Come and stay at my place. So she agreed. She went to her friend's place to sleep for the night, to seek shelter. Well, they ate something, and then it was time to sleep. So the fisherwoman, she had a very hard time sleeping. In that room, the room was full of fragrant flowers. It was just smelling great. But she could not sleep. She kept tossing and turning, and she just couldn't sleep. So her friend was laying nearby, and she asked, is it something wrong? She said, I don't know, I just can't sleep. The flower seller was very astute. She was very wise. She said, I think I know why. So she said, where's your basket from which you sold the fish? She said, oh, it's in the other room. So the flower seller brought the basket of the fish. There was no fish in there. She sprinkled some water on it, and she put it beside her friend. And she said, now I think you'll be able to sleep. So now the fisherwoman, the fish seller, she was accustomed to smelling fish. So now she's smelling fish, and she was able to sleep comfortably. That was her preference. Once, Guru and disciple were taking a walk in the woods. And the Guru was Shukdev Paramhans, and the disciple was the great King Parikshit. They were both walking in the woods, and King Parikshit had a question for his Guru. He said, Maharaj, please tell me, why is it that people desire the world, the material world, so much? Why do they have such a great desire for the world? The scriptures tell us there is no lasting happiness in the world. Tasmat dukkhatmakam nasti naiva kinchit sukhatmakam. Vishnu Puran. Shri Maharaj Ji has said it in this way. Jag mah sukh dukh do nahi, as ur dhari le gyan, sukh mane dukh milat hai, sukh na jagat mahman. If you have decided that there's happiness in the world, then be ready to experience a lot of sorrow. Be ready for the sorrow, because there's no happiness in the world. So, why are people of the world so desirous of the world which has no happiness according to the scriptures and according to our own experience? Our own experience tells us this. So, I don't understand, Gurudev. Shukdev didn't give the answer. He said, he just remained quiet. As they were walking, sometime later, Shukdev Paramhans stopped. The king also stopped, and Shukdev said, look over there. Rajan, O king, look over there on the ground. And it was a disgusting sight. It was some human waste matter that had dried up. And the king was wondering why his guru was telling him to look over there. And the guru said, look closer. And the king saw something even more disgusting, and that was there were some very small creatures, little worms. They were going round and round in that waste matter. The guru said to the disciple, now take a leaf or a stick and put these miserable creatures, they're in this horrible environment. They don't know, perhaps, that there are very beautiful, multicolored, and very fragrant flowers laying nearby. So put them over there. Do them a favor. The king did as he was told. But as soon as he put those little creatures onto the flowers, he was shocked to find that they left the flowers. They did an about turn and a quick march. And they went right back to that disgusting feces, dried up feces. That's what it was. And the king couldn't believe it. Maharaj, why is it that they don't want the flowers? They want waste matter. पाखाना चाहते हैं और फूलों को नहीं चाहते. ऐसा क्यों? The Guru said, because these creatures, they find that waste matter very fragrant. They find it very desirable. They don't like the flowers. They couldn't care less about flowers, but they love the waste matter. They're attached to it. So they desire that which they're attached to. And I'm telling you this, O king, to answer your question. Why do people in the world desire the world when the fact is there's no lasting happiness in the world? No true happiness here. The answer is because people are attached to the world. Because of their attachments, even ugliness turns to beauty, nastiness turns into something very nice, and this is why they desire it. To each their own, that is their preference. They prefer the world to God. Prahlad asked many people, who would like to go to Golok with me? And everybody got very excited. They said, oh yes, we'd love to go. But then one by one, they made excuses. Well, I would love to go, but my daughter is getting married next month. Well, she'll get married whether you're here or not. No, I cannot miss my own daughter's wedding, can I? Another said, my children are very small. I would love to go, but I cannot go. Everybody made excuses. Finally, Prahlad asked a pig, would you like to go with me? The pig said, I will go on one condition. You have a condition? Will I get my food stuff in Golok? What do you mean? I like this this feces, waste matter. I love it. Will I find that in Golok? No, there's everything divine over there. I'm not willing to go then. This is how our mind works. When we suspect there's happiness somewhere, we become attached to that thing or to that person, and then we start desiring that thing, even though that thing may be nasty, like meat, alcohol, all these things, drugs. Although these may be very nasty things, but we become very desirous of them when we form an attachment, thinking there's happiness there. So it's very important to understand that we have our sanskars from the past. Our sanskars play a very big part in our likes and dislikes and our preferences. Why do you like the color blue? It doesn't have only to do with this life, it has to do something with your previous lives as well. Why are you so interested in math and science or languages? Why are you so interested in medicine? Why do you like certain traits in a person? It has a lot to do with your previous lives. And we've all brought those sanskars with us, so we all have our different choices and preferences. Ek pita ke vipul kumara, says Tulsidas ji. Hohi prithak gunashil achara. One man, there's a man, he has many children, and all of them are so different. They have their different traits and personalities, they have their different preferences. 3 children of the same parents. One of them is very spiritual, one of them is not at all spiritual, one of them can't really decide if there is a God or not. One says, I'm an agnostic, another says, I'm an atheist, one says, I am a firm believer in God. One of them cannot get enough of holy association. One of them says, oh, they're all imposters, and they're all siblings. So, what kind of sanskars have we brought with us? And according to those sanskars, what are our choices? Shri Krishna says, you all have different sanskars, so think of me any which way. I just want you to think of me in the way you like to think of me, because it's very difficult to do Rup Dhyan on Bhagwan because of our worldly attachments. So then Bhagwan says, I'll make it easier for you. You would just think of me any which way. Tasmat kenapyupayena manah krishne niveshayet, as I quoted earlier from the Bhagavad. And from Rup Goswami ji in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, yena kena prakarena manah krishne niveshayet. Jaise taise bhi karo, lekin man ko Bhagwan mein lagao. So that makes Rup Dhyan very easy for us, because we don't have to ask anyone. We don't have to ask, Guruji, am I doing it right? Maharaji, am I making a mistake in my Rup Dhyan? No, nobody's making a mistake. Just go ahead and do think of him as you like to think of him. Next verse. Naam gun leela di kirtan saath mein karu pyare. Naam gun leela di kirtan saath mein karu प्यारे, साथ में करूं प्यारे. To facilitate Rup Dhyan, you must take the help of names, the name of God, the attributes of Bhagwan, and pastimes. Chant the names of God. And we do Nam Sankirtan quite often, don't we? Hari Hari Bol, Bol Hari Bol, Bhajo Giridhar Govind Gopala, Jai Radhe Krishna Radhe, Hare Ram Hare. We chant the names of God. We chant the attributes of God. Oh, He is so merciful, He is so loving, He is so forgiving. We sing like that. We sing songs of His glory, and we sing songs of His leelas. Jhoomat avat sham dekhu sakhi गति मद मत गयंद लजावत मन भावत ब्रज बाम देखू सखी. So a scene is depicted when we sing a song like that, when we sing a bhajan like that, that Shri Krishna is coming towards me, I can see him coming, and what does he look like? Jhumat avat sham. His body is swaying, and it looks like someone is intoxicated with divine love. He's coming. He doesn't walk straight. He sways as he walks. What a beautiful walk he has. We're able to do Roop Dhyan based on these songs of his Leelas. Shri Krishna is in the boat along with Radharani and the gopis. We sing those songs as well. Shama Sham Nam Roop Leela Gun Dhama Gao Roke Roop Dhyan Yukt Athon Yama. In Shama Sham Geet, we read about pastimes of Radha and Krishna in the jhula, in the swing, in the boat, in so many places. And from Prem Ras Madira, we learn the same, we read about the same. These Leela songs have been given to us, gifted to us by Sri Maharaj Ji, so that we may find it easier to do Roop Dhyan. We know very well that we are living in the age of Kali Yug. And it is the worst of 4 ages, the worst. This world, in Sanskrit we call the name for the world is Sansar and Jagat. Sansar means Sansaratiti iti sansarah. That which is shifting all the time is called Sansar, the world. And Jagat, Gachatiti Jagat. That which is always changing is called the Jagat, the Sansar, the world. Jo sarakta jaye wo sansar, jo badalta jaye wo Jagat. So, this world starts, not for the first time, but when creation period starts all over again, first there is Satyug, then Treta Yug, then Dwapar Yug, then Kali Yug. So in Satyug, people are extremely virtuous, they're very devotional. It's not difficult for them to do Roop Dhyan on Bhagwan. The world is not at all polluted. It's a very pure environment. Everything is just very, very good. It's Satyug. It's the beginning because the creation period has started once again. But then the world shifts. There's a downward shift. Treta Yuga comes. And now people are not so virtuous, but they are still quite virtuous. And the environment is not very polluted, but it's somewhat. It's worse than it was in Satyug. Then there's again a downward shift in Dwapar Yug. Then people are not as virtuous and as devotional as they were in Treta Yug, but they're not so bad. So there's a downward shift. But by the time Kali Yuga appears on the horizon, then we people are not very devotional at all, and the atmosphere is very polluted in every possible way. This is the worst age. So Bhagwan has given humans 4 different instructions for four eras. Krite yadhyayato vishnum tretayam yajato makhaihi dvapare paricharyayam kalau tadhari kirtanat. Canto 12, chapter 3, verse 52, Bhagavad Mahapuran. Here Bhagwan Vedavyas says, in Krita Yug or Satyug, all you had to do, the instruction for humans is you just meditate, close your eyes, and you'll be able to think about God. And so people would just sit quietly and close their eyes, and they would do Roop Dhyan very easily. But for people of Treta Yug, the instruction changed. Now it's more difficult to think of God. So they were told, Tretayam yajato makhaihi. You should do yagyas, what we call homas or havan, yagyas. And that will help you to do Rup Dhyan. Not like the havan that the likes of which are done today, these days, where people are only interested in taking the samagri, the ingredients, the fragrant ingredients, and throwing them in the fire when Panditji says swaha. So people are just waiting. Wait till he says swaha. And one looks at the other. He said swaha, you didn't put it in. Swaha. And the whole focus is on swaha. That's it. Because I've got to throw my things inside there. My ingredients need to go in. And the focus is on that. Who is doing Rup Dhyan? But in Treta Yuga, it was different. People were doing havan, but they were meditating on God. They were doing Rup Dhyan. And then there was a downward shift once again when Dwapar Yuga came. So Bhagwan changed his instruction. I'll make it easier for you. He said, okay, now you do ritualistic worship, Rup Puja. Dwapar kari raghupati pad puja. Tulsidas ji also says. So that would help people of Dwapar Yuga to do Rup Dhyan. But now for people of Kali Yuga, for us, for people who are living in Kali Yuga, we are very special people. God had to find a special method for us. The easiest method. Thankfully for us, we have been given the easiest method, and that is bhajan and kirtan. Chanting of the holy name. Chanting of the names of God, glory of God, chanting of the leelas, the pastimes of God. Just by taking my name and by singing about my attributes and my leelas, you'll be able to do Rup Dhyan on me easily. So the instruction for us to do Rup Dhyan and to facilitate that Rup Dhyan, we are told to chant, to sing songs of His glory. Sri Maharaj used to tell us many stories from his earlier days, and one of the stories he shared with us is this one. Sri Maharaj said that he had heard, and he was Jagat Guru now, and he was just in his 30s, mid-30s. Sri Maharaj had heard that there is someone who had memorized the entire Ramcharitmanas. And Maharaj thought of gracing this gentleman. So he went there. And that gentleman, he was inside, he was in his room. That was not the time to meet him. So his followers, his students, they said to Sri Maharaj, you will have to wait because he's busy inside. Maharaj waited. And when he finally came out, Maharaj had an audience with him, and Maharaj asked, sir, what were you doing inside? And he said, I was doing puja. Bacche. He took Maharaj to be a very young man, and he said, child, I was doing puja inside. Maharaj smiled to himself, but Maharaj asked a genuine question. You were doing puja? And I have heard you have memorized the entire Ramayana. Ha, bacha. Yes, my child, I have. Sri Maharaj said, Ehi kalikal na sadhana duja. And that gentleman, he completed the verse. Joga na jap tap vrat makh puja. Maharaj recited many chapais, verses from the Ramayana, and this gentleman, he completed the chapai. And all of those verses, all of the chapais were saying one thing, and that is, puja is not the recommended method for Kali Yuga. That is not the recommended method for doing Rup Dhyan on Bhagwan. There's only one method, and that is chanting of the holy name. Sri Maharaj said, sir, you are doing puja and you have memorized the entire Ramayana, but all these verses that you know very well, you have memorized them all, they are all saying that puja is not the recommended method for this yuga, this era. And this man was left speechless, but he thought that this was some atheist, some young man who is trying to trouble me. He said, no, you don't know. And he left. He went to his room. But the same gentleman was very anxious to listen to Jagat Guru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj's lecture. And that was in a couple of days. So he went, and he was sitting right in the front. He was so anxious to hear Jagatguru Shri Kripaluji Maharaj. Can we imagine his surprise when the same young man walked on stage? He was dressed differently. Shri Maharajji walked on the stage, and Shri Maharajji tells us, he used to tell us, this man, his eyes were just bulging. What? I mistook him for some young man who is some college student who was there to trouble me. He was there to teach me. So we memorize scriptures, but what are the scriptures really saying? Ramayana is not the only scripture that tells us this. Hare namaiva 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 mama jivanam kalau nastyeva 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 gatiranyatha. In the Purans, from the Purans we hear the same. From Skanda Puran we hear the same. That in the age of Kali, there is only one method that has been prescribed for you, O people of Kali Yuga, and that is Nam Sankirtan, chanting of the holy name. The Vedas say this, and the Vedas are the origin of all knowledge. So the Vedas say, Sada te nama swayasho vivakmi. My Lord, I always chant your glorious name. So Nam Sankirtan, Guna Sankirtan, Leela Sankirtan, this tradition of chanting the holy name, this principle, it's not something new. It's not just hundreds of years old. It is a timeless tradition. Because the Vedas are timeless, and they are telling us the virtues of chanting the holy name. So, chant the names of God. Some people say, I like to just sit quietly and meditate. That is possible for someone who's very advanced on this path. It's not possible to do Rup Dhyan while sitting still. So, if someone is able to do it, it means that he or she is very advanced. Now there's no need for kirtan, bhajan, there's no need for external help. But where we are at is the stage where we are distracted by every little sound. Am I right? You can nod if I'm right, if you agree, right? Every little sound disturbs us. It does disturb us. Tick-tock sound of a clock will disturb your Rup Dhyan. You're in your puja room, you're in your bedroom, maybe that's your puja room, a spot in your bedroom, and outside, some family member has dropped a plate in the kitchen, and you hear it, and all of a sudden, you're not doing Rup Dhyan, you're doing Rup Dhyan, but not of Bhagwan. You're doing Rup Dhyan of that fool who dropped that plate. And was it my good plate? Was that one in the beautiful set that I just got? I'm going to kill the person who dropped this. That's the Rup Dhyan, because we're not at that advanced level yet. So we need to chant the name of God. We need to hear it. We need a lot of help from these wonderful kirtans and bhajans. Eventually, we will get to a place, we'll get to a point where we don't have to take help from bhajans and kirtans, but we're not there yet. ध्यान ही है साधना का प्राण जीवन प्यारे, ध्यान ही है साधना का प्राण जीवन प्यारे, प्राण जीवन प्यारे, ध्यान बिनु सब साधना है, प्राण बिनु तनु प्यारे, ध्यान बिनु सब साधना है, प्राण बिनु तनु प्यारे, प्राण बिनु तनु प्यारे, साधना करू, साधना करू, साधना करू प्यारे, साधना करू, साधना करू, साधना करू प्यारे, साधना करू प्यारे. So ध्यान ही है साधना का प्राण जीवन प्यारे, ध्यान बिनु सब साधना है, प्राण बिनु तनु प्यारे. It's a little bit of repetition because when there's an important point, that always needs to be repeated. Shri Maharaj Ji is saying, doing Roop Dhyan of Shri Krishna is the very life of devotional practice, sadhana. Without that Roop Dhyan, your sadhana is like body without the soul. We are likely to think that when we see repetition in a scripture, that's a literary fault. In literature, this is a mistake, that you are repeating yourself. Redundancy. But this repetition is in the scriptures and it's in the words of saints for a reason. Whenever there's a very important point, saints always repeat it. Because maybe a saint says something, our guru says something once, we didn't catch it. Then he'll say it again, second time. Then we weren't there to listen to it. Third time he said it, mind was very disturbed. Fourth time he says it, we start getting it. Fifth time we understand it a little more. Sixth time we were very distracted and daydreaming. Seventh time we were sleeping, didn't hear anything. Eighth time, 10th time, maybe 20th time, then we get it. Oh, wow, Maharaji said this. I really like what he said. It just makes so much sense. Another person says, Maharaji has said this 20 times already before. I could swear this is the first time he said it because I never heard it before, really. And I didn't understand it. When I did hear it, I heard it, but I didn't really understand it. But now, truly, I've understood it. So, avritti rasakridupadeshat. Scriptures say, listen to lectures again and again. Again and again. Not just one time, not just once or twice. Again and again. Because our mind says, I've understood it all. Shri Maharaj Ji used to say, there is a झगड़ा है आपके मन में और हम में. आपका मन कहता है हमने सब कुछ समझ लिया. हम कहते हैं आपने अभी कुछ नहीं समझा. Shri Maharaj Ji used to say, your mind and myself, we have a fight going on. Argument. Your mind says, I've understood everything. And the Guru, Shri Maharaj Ji says, but I say to your mind, you haven't really understood anything yet. So we need to listen again and again. And whenever we see repetition in our Guru's words or in a scripture, it is for a good reason. It's not that the saint was asleep, he said something and then he said it again, he said it a third time. Was Tulsidas Ji sleeping? Did he not realize it? What happened? Did he forget? No, he wanted to emphasize this point. So Shri Maharaj Ji is saying it again, that Roop Dhyan is the very life of sadhana, and so we must not just chant without Roop Dhyan. We must first start doing Roop Dhyan, then we should start chanting. So today I'm going to stop right there and I will continue where I'm leaving off next time. बोलिए श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय, लाडली लाल की जय. जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे.